In the southern plains, a peak grew from the earth like a spire. The mountain was so old that nobody knew what it had once been named. Now, it was simply called the Shadowed Edge. For as long as most could remember, it had been silent and dead. But on this night, a cool autumn one, the silence was at last broken when a strange red light began to emanate from the silhouette of the highest craggy peak. The whole tip of the spire glowed red, like blood seeping from a grisly wound. In a place otherwise famous for being silent and void of life, any news was news indeed. The wanderers in caravans noticed the light as they sat around campfires, pausing on their journey from the southern coast to the Middlewood in the north. It immediately stirred concerned conversation among those of the company. Some had come on this very caravan despite others that were available because they wanted to see the strange mountain called the Shadowed Edge. It had been described to them as a sword jutting from the land, tall and nearly impossible to scale up. Tales of Argul Dea, an elvish city of demigods that was supposedly once at the top of the peak, had circulated around the caravan as they traveled. Now, with the light above them, the stories started again with a new fervor. Something was happening. Some of the wanderers scoffed. Argul Dea was a myth, and even if it had been real, the city was sure to be nothing but a crumbled ruin now. The story stopped immediately when the group saw a pair of figures in dark robes appear. The figures ignored the caravan and walked past it, as silent as shadows. All of the wanderers grew deathly quiet as they watched, unsure if they were going to have to defend themselves against the strangers, but the dark figures just disappeared into the shadowy crevices of the mountain. The next morning, the bloody light was gone. The group packed up camp and eventually moved on in their travels. It was an unusual, unexplained anomaly that most would forget about weeks later. They would never understand what event had occurred that night. But the robed figures that had vanished into the recesses of the wanderers' memories would never forget. That night, Dinara and Ella, the two Varils beneath the robes, made it past the caravan. Varils were becoming increasingly uncommon. The elves, with their righteous indignation, had been attacking the demon race, causing a near extinction. There weren't many Varils to begin with. It was a race not as old as vampires, humans, or elves. They were easy to spot, with sour yellow eyes and blindingly white hair.
They will see us,
Ella had hissed, pointing to the campfire and the wanderers in the caravan. But Dinara had ignored her pleas to slow earlier, too. They had to reach the light at the top. He ushered her forward, and although he knew they had indeed been noticed, he didn't care. "The path is here," he said. Slipping past several jagged, cavernous stones, he found a set of steep stairs that had been carved out of the rock. Together they ascended, the path lit only by their pale yellow eyes.
"We were seen,"
Ella whispered angrily. Her breath stirred the cowl around her face. Clutched in her arms was a small, stirring form, wrapped tightly in dark silks. Dinara did not look back. He kept on leading, scaling the ancient black stone steps hidden within the crevices. Ella did not speak further as they continued up the stairs, the bloody light drawing closer. The only thing that broke the silence was the occasional whimpering from the baby that Ella held. Here in the cracks of the mountain, no light or sound could pierce. It took half the night for the couple to reach the pinnacle, but even when their legs grew tired, they pressed on. As they crested the cliffside, now deep into the night, they saw what so many people had not, the ruin at the top. Argul Dea. No longer the shining gem of a divine city, all that was left was the shattered corpse of the place, the broken buildings jutting from the earth like old bones. The once gleaming marble roadway was broken apart and smashed into rubble. The power of nature had taken its toll, and was already overrunning the old homes with moss and weeds. Eerily, animals, even birds, had long ago abandoned the place. Ella and Dinara stood at the edge of the ruin of Argul Dea in silence, staring at the awe-inspiring city. It was expansive, but inarguably dead.
"Amazing, isn't it?
Ella whispered.
This place was built long before our race even existed."
Dinara nodded in the quiet. "We should move quickly." He pointed through the cracked archway that had once been a beautiful gate, gesturing towards the center of the city, where the red light thrummed like the beating of a massive heart. Stepping through the gates of Argoldea made the couple nervous. Once, these gates would have been imbued with magics that would not permit them entrance. Even though Dinara knew that the magic must have faded by now, how else would the others have gotten in? He still felt trepidation, particularly when the small bundle in Ella's arms began to squirm again, little cries erupting from the silk. "Shh!" Dinara cautioned as they stepped past the broken corpses of the guard towers, the marble flesh of the building scored with burns and cracks. Ella hushed the child, cooing to him, and he again went silent. They walked together, their cloaks whispering over the stones choked by foliage, twisting brown vines decorated in large yellow blooms that had withered to husks. "There," Dinara said, pointing again. Towards the center of town, down the main road, there lay a domed building, huge and regal, even in its death. The top had been cracked open like an egg, and red light spilled out from its roof. Gilded pillars still stood sturdy here. Images carved into the wall of the three so gracious gods, the enemy of the Varils, stared down at them with condemnation. And Dinara could not help but quake beneath their piercing diamond eyes. Even in the art, their beauty was almost too much to bear. He and Ella avoided the eyes as they ducked past the monolith golden pillars. The front doors had been battered in centuries ago, and they leaned at awkward angles, wood splintering. Behind those doors stood the first signs of life that Dinara and Ella had seen in hours. 4 figures garbed in matching dark robes. Beneath their cowls, yellow eyes glinted. "Welcome," the one in the front said with a bow. One of his eyes was a milky white, a jagged scar running across the lid. "You brought the boy." Dinara nodded towards Ella, and she stepped forward, holding the child gently in the silken sheets. The robed figures bowed their heads in reverence. The child had gray hair, so light it was almost white. His eyes were a bright, vibrant yellow, and he glanced at the robed figures with the confusion any young one would. He did not yet know who he would become. "This way," the figure in front said, motioning with a pale, spidery hand. "The others are waiting." They walked through the grand entrance together in silence. Dinara and Ella stared around at the incredible height of the building. The ceiling was impossibly high above them and decorated with beautiful yet tarnished murals of great battles and night skies. There were the 3 gods again, wearing robes and holding hands to ring in everything around them. Again, Dinara had the distinct fear ripple through him that it was not just the 2 dark ones they worshipped that would be privy to this meeting. The 3 gods would be watching too, and their power frightened him. They reached a pair of silvery doors that were already opened, and that red light blasted from within. Without hesitation, knowing they could not turn back, Ella and Dinara stepped into a domed room and vanished into red. Blinking against the intensity of the glow, the group stepped into the center of the room. The night sky staring down at them through the cracked roof, high above. In the middle of the grand arena sat a gemstone the size of a building. It was the Stone of the Damned, a gift from the Dark Ones. It had been dragged up here a long time ago during the destruction of Argoldea. Its powers had ripped up the foundations of the magic here, allowing the Varil to attack. The ruby-like facets glittered as the group of robed figures placed their hands against the stone, activating it for the first time in decades. As the creations of the Dark Ones, Varils were the only ones who could tap into the darkness inside that massive boulder of a gem. Dinara noticed Ella looking up above them, but not at the night sky. He tried to find what she was looking at. It was difficult, with everything dyed in blood from the stone's thrumming, but for a second he thought he saw 2 cloaked figures high above on a viewing platform. One in deep red, the other in, perhaps, purple? It was difficult to tell. They watched, their robes fluttering in a wind that Dinara could not feel. "You have come," the robed figure with the scarred eye addressed them, his hand one of the many placed on the massive gem. A crowd of Varils in robes, perhaps 20 or more, stirred behind pillars in the room. All eyes were on the couple as they approached.
Show us the child.
Ella gently removed the silk from around the child's head so his white-gray hair could be seen. Many of the robed figures hissed in awe, others muttering quietly to one another. The Varil with the scarred eye reached out with his only available hand, but then he withdrew it quickly.
He is without doubt an heir of Devarin,
he whispered with reverence.
Bring him to the gemstone and we will give him his name.
Ella gave Dinara a look that he knew well. She had committed to come not because she had wanted this, but because she knew if they had not come, the Varil would have hunted them down, disposed of them both, and taken the child anyway. They were in this together. But now that they were here, Dinara saw only fear in her eyes. An overwhelming feeling of dread burst from inside Dinara. They should not be here. His eyes swiveled back up to the two strange figures watching from high above, and for a horrifying moment he felt them both invading his mind. They knew his fears and doubts. He could hide nothing from them. None of his life nor his love for Ella. They were here. This child was not theirs to keep. He had a destiny that Ella and Dinara could not prevent him from pursuing. With horrible resolution, Dinara watched as Ella stepped forward with their child. The robed figure in the front was speaking again, his voice now loud, calling up and out of the dome that they did not own.
May the companions of the darkness, the Dark Ones, witness this day. This hour we give the heir of Devarin the name of Devari.
The figure looked down at the child and continued.
Your mission, child, is to cut the threads of this world. From this moment on, the countdown to the day of destiny begins! Young Devari, you will bring the Varil, the blood of this world. May chaos be your greatest offering to the companions!
Dinara could see tears in Ella's eyes, not tears of joy. The child, their child, was brought forward, and the robed figure snatched Devari's tiny hand and placed it against the stone. Immediately, the baby began to cry. The red light glowed on his hand in a blaze of fire, and Dinara watched as the emblem of the Varil, a sigil in the shape of a piercing eye, was emblazoned on his little hand like a jacket burned. And then the stone died. The light vanished, siphoning out of the stone and into the child. With a burst of sound, a crack cut through the gem from top to bottom. Its purpose had been fulfilled. The room went quiet save for the tearful shrieks of the baby boy, who glowed with that same light for only a moment before the red sank into his soft skin like water into dry ground. The stone that had once been red was now as gray as slate. Dinara took a shuddering breath and glanced up towards the outlook above. There, the two figures stood, the figure in red and the figure in purple. The red one left promptly, hands behind its back. The purple one lingered for only a moment, leaning down. Was the figure looking at him? Dinara shuddered at the thought. Then the figure in purple reluctantly followed the figure in red. Letting out a shaky breath, Dinara turned back to Ella. She had managed to quiet their child who now had a name and a symbol. Devari. On his hand was the red burn of the Varil. His fate was sealed. Without a farewell to the others of their race, Dinara and Ella turned and exited Argoldea. The dome now matched the rest of the city, dead and blackened in the night. The two made their way back down the mountain in silence, not exchanging a word between them. Devari lay asleep in his mother's arms. Dinara rehearsed it in his mind over and over again. This was his duty. It had been his job to sire the child that would be brought on this night to Argoldea. It had been his job to raise the one that would destroy the humans, the one who would bring ruin to the elves, the one who would raise the world of vampires to the ground. That had been Dinara's destiny, just as it was now his son's destiny to carry out the end of the world. Not that night, not that year, and not for the short remaining years of his life could Dinara shake the feeling that he had made a dire mistake.